Hi, this is Rob Kramarz, founder of Intelliversity. We're here again with a promising new entrepreneurial company that meets our criteria for a team with multiple founders, all in a management position. And this company is called Innovative Neuro Technologies. And the co-founders are here. We have Shawn Mojtahedian, who's the Chief Scientific Officer, and Simmon, who's the CEO. And before we launch into our intriguing discussion of their frustrations and solutions to the investment dilemmas they face, I want to remind you that this is not a solicitation to buy securities, nor is it an offer to sell securities. This is a training video for entrepreneurs. And if there are investors watching, they'll also learn something too. This is a training video, and now we're going to explore their experience raising funds and what they've learned and what you can learn from that experience, and their experience raising and putting together their team, which is a lot, is part and parcel of the fundraising process. Before we actually launch into the educational material, let me have you guys each spend 30 seconds giving the audience your elevator pitch, your 30-second pitch as to what the company does. Keep it, keep it at the level of Scientific American rather than, say, Nature magazine, so that we can all understand it. So why don't we start with the CEO, Vincent F.
Innovative Neuro Technologies is focused on developing two different biological approaches to treating Alzheimer's disease. We're focusing on an area called the tau protein, which Shawn will explain in more detail, as a new therapeutic approach differentiated from approaches that have been used for the last 10 or 15 years and which do not appear to be succeeding.
Clearly, Alzheimer's disease is a tremendous unmet medical need. There doesn't need to be a strong argument for that. It's a global presence in industrialized countries in the United States, Europe, and Asia. But historically, in the last 10 or 15 years, as Vince has mentioned, the NIH and pharma machine has been focusing on a particular target known as beta amyloid and the beta amyloid hypothesis. And most of the approaches, therapeutically speaking, have been against that target. Unfortunately, we have not seen any promising results, especially in clinical trials, late-stage clinical trials against beta amyloid. So pharmaceutical companies, and I would say the general public as a whole, we're desperately looking for new targets and novel approaches. And we feel that tau, the neglected target, is one of those. And we're introducing a couple of therapeutic approaches against that.
Okay, so before we launch into the subject of your experience with the investment community, explain to us what tau is.
Well, when Dr. Alzheimer's first characterized Alzheimer's disease, he noted that in the brains of patients who had died with significant cognitive and memory decline, there were two forms of deposits. One called beta amyloid, and the other was called tau tangles, ultimately called tau tangles. And those had been, because they're seen diagnostically, they've been the targets of different therapeutic approaches. But as Shawn mentioned, the primary focus of the research groups, including the NIH and pharmaceutical companies, has been on the amyloid protein.
Well, exactly what is tau? Is it another protein?
Tau is a microtubule binding protein that exists intracellularly, which means it exists inside the neurons.
Inside the neurons.
It's just funny that Alzheimer diagnosed his first case of the disease now known as Alzheimer's back in 1906. So after over 100 years of research, when we look at clinically what's out there in terms of drugs that actually work, the field is not promising at all. We have a couple of drugs currently on the market which are dealing with the symptoms of the disease, but the underlying pathology has not been addressed yet. So tau is a relatively large protein compared to beta amyloid, and contains many epitopes. So there's many targets on the protein itself. And as I said before, for the most part, it's been neglected. For the last 15 years or 20 years of research on Alzheimer's, people have focused on the beta amyloid, and many of the tau researchers have been arguing that really this is the target, this is the protein that is a better indicator of the disease progression.
Well, if you attack this protein with an antibody or some kind of small molecule, you presumably will actually slow down the progression of the Alzheimer's, right? I
That
understand
is,
that correctly?
that is certainly the presumption. We have not yet demonstrated that with tau, although there are other animal models using different approaches against the same target, where there has been a demonstration that in these animal models they can slow or stop progression of cognitive decline by attacking the tau protein.
So how did you come into possession of this technology to attack the tau protein?
Well, I'm a neuroscientist myself, so my PhD is in neuroscience, and I have laboratory experience, obviously, and I know the kind of the scientific community and the literature. When I was looking at Alzheimer's and the current therapies, I still felt the best early stage technologies are coming out of the academic and research institutions. The basic sciences, for the most part, is relegated to those areas, especially here in San Diego. So I've talked to a number of noted researchers, and I attend conferences regularly, and I realized that technology is not a problem. There's a lot of early stage technology, but which one of these will actually work? And speaking to a couple specifically in the tau space, and I've talked to the majority of the leading experts, it became kind of clear to me that there has been a kind of dogma in this field, a central dogma in the field that has shifted the attention of researchers. That beta amyloid clearly is not the story, that the central hypothesis theory does not seem to hold, that the serial model seems to be outdated. I should also mention that Alzheimer's is a complex, multifactorial disease. There's not going to be a single target or a single cure. You're going to need a cocktail of drugs or compounds.
All right, so how did you come into possession of the technology?
Well,
You licensed it?
Well, I actually picked up the phone and called the researcher. He's at Northwestern University, and I spoke with him directly, introduced myself. Certainly he knew the people I had trained under, and we began a discussion. And he was as frustrated as well, because he has been in the tau space for a number of years, and he goes, look, Shawn, I agree with you. You know, the debate on the story for a long time has been outdated, and we've been arguing about this new target. And unfortunately, academics are not very good in terms of commercializing technology into a clinic. They need
Right, but how did you come, once again, how did you actually come into possession of the technology? You contacted the researcher. Did you go to the tech transfer office and sign a contract?
So I did a kind of a level of due diligence on my end, read a number of the articles that the researcher had published on the field, and other researchers as well, and I got a kind of comprehensive understanding. Essentially, I want to make an argument on why I feel this particular epitope or target in tau is exciting and important. And once I was convinced, I did contact the tech transfer offices of the public universities, and we said this is a very early stage technology, so the value is not that there yet and needs to be commercialized, and we're perhaps a vehicle to do that.
Okay. So you bought a contract to, why don't you answer the question? You got a contract.
It's an exclusive option.
Exclusive option
to the technology, to develop the technology. There are requirements within it for us to be performing.
Okay.
So we have an agreement with them that has a finite lifespan to develop the technology.
So now your job, as I understand it, is to raise capital to
achieve that.
To achieve enough validation where you can have a licensing event or additional capital.
Correct.
Brought in, right.
That would be correct. Yes.
Okay. Great. So in a nutshell, what has been your frustration in dealing with the investment community and in attempting to raise capital? I'll give each of you a shot at that.
Should I go first here? As I said before, technology or early stage technology is not a problem. That we have access to a lot of that. The issue here is, given the current very difficult economic environment, investors don't have quite the confidence that they perhaps had in the past in early stage opportunities. These are higher risk kind of opportunities, and what they're telling us is that we need kind of a de-risking. How do we know that this particular approach against tau is going to succeed in clinical trials where all the other drugs for Alzheimer's have failed in the past?
And what's been your experience? What's been your experience with?
Well, working with Shawn, we've had conversations with pharmaceutical companies, and we know that they're interested in this technology. They would like to see us push it forward from laboratory stage at Northwestern to show some additional data, and it's getting that very first parcel of money in that has been frustrating to us. On the other hand, we think that the environment is changing, and changing favorably.
So what we're going to continue in a moment, what we're going to continue with is a discussion of how this firm, given the frustrations of an early stage firm, is attempting to de-risk the process so that investors will feel the risk is mitigated, even though it's early stage, and will provide them with the funds they need to carry to the next phase. So we'll see you in a minute.